Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin of Swiss American Trading Corporation. Thank you for tuning in to our most recent episode here of the Secret War on Cash, where we discuss various financial, political, economic issues that I hate to actually say that kind of are plaguing our country right now, plaguing America. We have had a year full of problems in our banking system. Inflation is rearing its ugly head. We have real estate, especially in the commercial marketplace, that looks like it's on the brink of something very bad about to take place. We haven't spoken about it in a few weeks, but we've got the formation of BRICS, the alliance that is dead set on the de-dollarization of this world, which would have more than likely some tremendously negative implications for the U.S. dollar. So I have with me today Chris Agelastos, my co-host. Chris, good morning. How are you?
Doing well. Finishing up my Christmas shopping, so I'm exceedingly happy for Amazon right now.
You're running out of daylight, so I'd get that done
I
sooner
know.
versus later. It's been a really quick turn this holiday season. I mean, it seems like just
Yeah.
a blink ago it was Thanksgiving, and now we're staring Christmas right in the face. This whole year has actually just been a blur. It's flown by so quickly.
Yeah.
So now I don't want to sound negative, but man, it seems like the U.S. banking system has been under fire all year long. We all know that there's always spin going on in the news, and these days you basically have to have your head on a swivel to keep up with all this. The article on your screen highlights banking issues that stem back to the pandemic. And we've seen a lot. We kicked off the year with the what was it, the Silicon Valley Bank, their closure.
Yeah.
We've seen several other banks in this suffer the same fate. Excuse me.
Mhm.
Um, it's the same issues we're discussing today, nearly 4 years later, where banks are denying customers funds or access to their funds, but it's all in the same vein. Banks' main functionality, I think everybody would agree on this, is to service customers. That's what they're doing. We bring in their money,
Mhm.
and they provide a service where they keep our money. They allow us access to our money if we need it, so we can live our life and do the things that we need to do financially. They next need to support shareholders, which is the first hand washes the second. The more they take care of the customers, that helps the shareholders. Is this the new model of banking, I should say?
Mhm.
Should we expect this to be the new norm where, you know, banks, well, as you see on the article on your screen there, again, this bank was fined 21 million for illegally freezing accounts. I mean, how is this
Yeah.
even possible?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're seeing more and more of it, so it's again, kind of becoming desensitized to it. And what you mentioned was, I think, the old model of banking, where banks are supposed to take care of their customers. And what used to happen, right? Think back to when we were younger, watching westerns. Not to date myself, but you'd have somebody go in and they would rob the bank. And now the model's flipped a little bit, and I think that the banks are robbing the people, and they have so much power and control over our money that we're really close to helpless. And these fines, $21 million, while that sounds like a lot of money, and it is obviously for the average person, that's not a lot for these banks. And so these are little slaps on the wrist. And is that really enough to make a difference? I think about something recent that drives me crazy, and maybe other parents can relate to it, is these food delivery services. When I see my kids ordering Chipotle or something, and a normal meal now costs about $15, which also is a little crazy to me. But then they pay 7, 8, 9, $10 for delivery. And so I told my kids, look, I'll pay for your meal, but I'm not paying for your delivery because you're too lazy to go get it. And so in essence, what I was doing was, finding them 5, 6, $7, but I was still paying for the $15 meal. And I think that's what's happening to the banks here. Well, guess what? My kids still ordered those meals. They just covered the delivery charge because that was cheaper than the meal. As soon as I switched it to, okay, I'll pay for your food if you go pick it up. If you want it delivered, now you have to foot the whole bill. Well, guess what? They stopped ordering, and that's what it's going to take here. I think for the banks to kind of step in line is to really have some real pain. If they're making hundreds of millions of dollars or even billions of dollars, and they're being fined millions, again, that's a small cost of doing business. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. I think most of the politicians are in the bank's pockets. And I even had a friend
Right.
yesterday, of all days, that told me they just got a letter from their bank telling him that he has something like maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get his money out of the bank because they're closing his account, and they didn't provide any reason. They just said, we're choosing to close your account. He called them and got transferred up the line to a few people, and nobody would tell him why. And he said, that's fine. I'll take my money. I'll go somewhere else. But I've had this account for, 3 years now. Can you just tell me why? Why is it that you're refusing to give me service now all of a sudden? And they simply would not give him an answer. And so, I mean, that kind of tells you the mindset from a customer service standpoint that
Sure.
these banks have. And if we ran a business like that, I can guarantee you we'd be out of business.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and it's very creative what you did with your children in terms of like fixing the delivery cost. The problem, from my perspective, with the banks is that there really is no incentive for them to improve, and the reason I say that is
Yeah.
because even if what would be a penalty? Well, people get upset and start pulling their money out of that bank and going to another bank, but it's not singularly one bank out there that's doing this. It's
Right.
across the board. So what bank do you use? Not to
Hmm.
mention, even if people did pull their money out and did go to another bank, and that bank felt the financial pinch of that, any bank that gets in trouble, the government's right there to help them, give them money, bail them out anyway. So
Bail.
there's really no
Mhm.
penalty. It's
Yeah.
something. So with that said, how does the situation correct itself or improve when there's really nothing that is going to motivate it to correct itself or improve? And that
Right.
kind of leads into the second article that you see on your screen there. Um, and this has become all too familiar, but it's related to the article where in this case, funds were being wrongfully seized. Now, a year later, the funds haven't even been returned. And in this case, it's $30,000. And
Yeah.
in recent podcasts, we've been talking about how much US households have been suffering and struggling to pay their bills and buy groceries
Hmm.
and things that, again, those real life issues. Well, as the article on the screen shows, it's an example, and unfortunately a common example anymore, of someone who lost this 30 grand, 30 grand
Yeah.
for 1 year. And,
Yeah.
maybe to some that's not a world of money, but it's 30 grand is a lot of money. And
Yeah.
especially in today's economy, when you have these real issues of people struggling to, just cover their bare essentials. I mean, we have seen so many examples of this, Chris. How does this continue to happen? And I mean, is there any light at the end of the tunnel that's not basically an oncoming train?
No, unfortunately, I really don't think so. For all the reasons that we've been talking about here, there just really is no penalty. In fact, in this case, even though I think the person just got their money back or is supposed to be getting it back from B of A. Not to throw them under the bus, but they deserve it. And again, they had to fight for a year. Now, luckily, this person happened to have some other money that they could live on, but with most people living paycheck to paycheck, what is it? I think 6 out of 10 households. So most people, would have been in trouble. And what would their penalties have been? Well, not paying their bills, maybe being behind on their electric or water payment,
Right.
maybe getting evicted. There's a lot of penalties if we can't get access to our money. But there were no penalties on the bank here. So I think unfortunately there is no incentive, no real incentive for them to change, and I think that's why people need to protect themselves. diversify themselves, not be completely reliant on one bank, and not to be completely reliant on the banking system. You have to have some money outside of the bank, whether that's,
Right.
maybe a mix of things. Obviously we work a lot with physical metals, because people like the security, and they like having something tangible that's been around and valuable for thousands of years, or even cash on hand as well. Makes sense. I think you've got to have your eggs in different baskets, because if you are 100% reliant on the banking system, and even more so, one bank in that system, it's just a matter of time before this comes to your house, and then you're really going to have to deal with it.
For sure. I mean, and it's again, like we mentioned a moment ago, it's the banks, and so it does have in effect, it has an impact on each and every one of our lives. It's going to have a greater impact if it's your or my 30 grand that's being seized and froze by the bank for this indefinite period of time.
Yeah.
And it's the reality of this whole banking situation is it's not improving whatsoever. In fact, if anything, it's literally by the day, we just are seeing more and more stories like this. And
Hmm.
for those of you tuning in, if that the reason that we have this podcast entitled "The Secret War on Cash," it is a war on your cash. I mean, some people might ask, well, what does secret war on cash mean? Well, this is it. Your cash that you with good faith put into a bank so that you could have it there when you need it, and that is being stripped away from you. And it's funny. People say, well, the government and the banks, they're in cahoots with each other. How, it's a fair statement. I mean, when you have banks who there's been an abundance of improprieties out there, and at the first thing that happens where the bank's in trouble, the government is right there to bail them out. This poor
Hmm.
person who had their 30 grand seized, there's nobody there to help them. I mean, they may lean on a family member, but there is no structural bailout that exists for you and
Right.
I, the everyday consumers. So, well, thanks for sharing that, Chris. And
Yeah.
as we kind of wind down here at the year 2023, this will definitely be a topic we'll be discussing again. Thanks for those of you who have been tuning in. And if you want some information, like to get a copy of Secret War on Cash, contact our office at 800-289-2646 or online at swissamerica.com. We'd be happy to get that out to you. Chris, thanks again. We look forward to next year. And as I mentioned, the bank thing will be a topic for sure that we'll be covering again. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, we'd love you to do so. Leave comments if you'd like. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And if you're not following us on social media, that's a great thing to do as well, as we have a lot of information we put out to you there as well. So thanks so much. Until next time, we will continue to watch this and other things and get back with you.